Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Today is Scrap the Cap Day, which means that if you earn $1 million a year, you stop contributing to Social Security today. Obviously, if you make more, you're Elon Musk or one of these other billionaires, you probably stop, by January 2nd. And we really think that as Representative Larson has introduced legislation that he'll be talking about that restores Social Security to long range balance by requiring everyone to contribute all year long out of every paycheck, just as 94% of Americans already do. So it is always, for the last decade or so, the focus has been on the projected shortfall, very manageable. Congress just needs to act to make sure benefits will continue being paid on time and in full. And that has always been the focus. But unfortunately, with the wrecking crew we now have in the form of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who are really seem determined to destroy our Social Security system, they are running havoc over, so we may not, over those who work to our benefit to make sure that we can have access to the benefits we have all earned. Now, we are very fortunate to have with us the former commissioner, Martin O'Malley, who did just stellar work making sure that wait times were down and all of that. And unfortunately, that work is being not only undone and reversed, but really undermining an agency and something in a way that has not happened in the 90-year history of this program. So as I think you all know, Commissioner O'Malley was a fantastic mayor of Baltimore, governor of the great state of Maryland, and did just a spectacular job as commissioner. We are sorry he is not still the commissioner, but unfortunately we have to wait for the next Democratic administration. So with that, Commissioner O'Malley, let me turn it over to you.
Nancy, thank you. And thank you for not only your friendship over that remarkable turnaround year, but also your tutoring leading up to it. It's in the old days, pre the co-presidency of Trump and Musk, nominees weren't allowed to even have conversations with people inside the agency, let alone send teams of 11-year-olds to go rummaging through your personal data. But so Nancy really tutored me up before I went into the agency. So Nancy, thank you for all you do to educate people on Social Security. I have been, I find myself answering a lot of calls from reporters these days, and I find myself going back, Nancy, to your book all the time, and chapter 11, setting up all the same old lies and knocking them down with the truth. Social Security, in fact, is not a Ponzi scheme. It is a pay-as-you-go program, and we could make it go for a lot longer if we recognize and tell our friends what this Scrap the Cap Day is all about. The truth of the matter is, here in Baltimore, a nurse working at Hopkins pays into Social Security all year out of every paycheck she gets every 2 weeks. But, Warren Buffett stops paying in, or Elon Musk stops paying in about 5 seconds after midnight. So most Americans don't think that's right. They don't think that's fair. And Congress, every 40 years, looks at that 75-year trajectory and makes adjustments. That's what they did the last time to create the trust fund reserve surplus in order to make sure that there was money to pay full benefits once us baby boomers, I'll speak for myself. I know John Larson's a lot younger than me and Nancy's younger than me, but us baby boomers, to make sure that we would be able to, that there were dollars there. And what's happened now because of income inequality, because of protecting the highest earners from paying their fair share in so many ways, that surplus reserve in the trust fund is being depleted faster than the baby boomer generation is going on to their eternal reward. But that can all be fixed. Here's something, though, that we had turned around, and I wanted to just focus on the operations for a second here. And before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge John Larson's leadership. I don't know if John's on your screen right now, but he soon will be. I see him on mine. And John Larson has been a tireless advocate for Social Security, for proclaiming the truth that this is the most profound act of compassion and caring for one another that a free people have ever put into law. And for 90 years, month in and month out, the hardworking men and women at Social Security, through world wars, through economic downturns, and most recently through pandemic, made sure they never missed a single payment. So Congressman Larson, I'm sure we'll talk to you about some of the legislation he put in yesterday. So let me focus my remaining couple of minutes here. And Nancy, thank you for letting me be leadoff batter on the operations of Social Security. It's really important that people understand this issue of scrapping the cap. That is to say, when people earn more than $400,000 or $500,000, it's not like they stop paying into Medicare. Why do we give the wealthiest of Americans a free pass and have them not pay into Social Security on higher earnings? It makes total sense. And 80% of Americans agree with that, just as 80% of Americans, regardless of party, want Social Security to be strengthened and extended, not have a wrecking ball taken to it or see it dismantled. And yet, that's what we're seeing right now. And it breaks my heart. I know the people in that headquarters. I love the people in that headquarters. I admire and hold in the highest esteem their commitment to the truth that we're all in this together and that we have to help each other if we're going to succeed. And I saw them sprint up a downward moving escalator for a full year, improving virtually every service delivery metric that large social insurance agency provides to the public. They got the wait time on the 1-800 number, the speed to answer, down from 42 minutes to 12 and a half minutes. They completed effectuations of retiree benefit applications within 2 weeks for 87% of people that applied. That's the first time they'd accomplished that in 10 years. And that's with staffing that House Republicans have reduced to a 50-year low, even as we baby boomers swell their ranks to all-time highs. And one other indicator, we got the ALJ hearings down to a speed of decision of 405 days at the beginning of last year to 280 days. They hadn't accomplished that in 30 years. And that's with staffing reduced to a 50-year low. But now, as many of you have probably read, it would appear that Co-President Musk and the young people of Doge seem intent on driving this agency into a crater. The things they have done to drive knowledgeable staff out of Social Security has meant all of those indicators I mentioned are now moving in the wrong direction. And they're moving there fast. So people who work their whole lives paid in for the benefits, but they also paid in for the customer service necessary to access those benefits. And that customer service is being robbed from them every day. How's this for waste in government? The Doge, Musk, Trump co-presidency are now paying retirement eligible, knowledgeable people at Social Security, paying them not to show up for the whole rest of the year. If they leave now, no knowledge transfer from the very knowledgeable IT people into the systems that keep that place operating. They've created a toxic work environment. They have fired, right away, they fired some of the best people in the agency, brought in the head of civil rights and equal opportunity, told her, even though I know for a fact she's an A-plus player, I worked with her for the whole year, told her services are no longer needed. She's being fired for cause, and all the other 160 people are as well. I wonder why it is that they do away with the office whose responsibility it is to take complaints from workers about a hostile work environment or a toxic work environment. So these are the things that are happening now every single day. They are hell-bent on gutting the agency, robbing you of your customer service. And these are the things that will unfold in the 90 days ahead. Already you're seeing the wait times for services go up, up, up. You will soon start to see disruptions of some of the claims processing systems that sit on top of the very old green screen COBOL system. And then ultimately, you'll see longer durations of outages of those aspects of it. You will see improper payments and underpayments. The incident of that will become more frequent, and the time it takes to correct them will become longer, creating hardships of both kinds, repayment and underpayment on both sides of that. And ultimately, those system failures and the absence of staff to keep that old COBOL system maintained, because just like old cars, old systems need to be maintained or they break down. You're going to see all of that in the next 30 to 90 days cascade into some benefit interruption. How long it is, I have no idea, but I do know this. You have to have knowledgeable people who not only understand how to code in COBOL, who understand the architecture of that place and the way it has been fit together, even in with these staffing reductions and the budget reductions. So, Nancy, let me stop there. I know you have other people to speak, but I want to encourage everyone. Please don't give up. What people want to, those that want to wreck the institutions of our republic, like Social Security, are counting on you becoming exhausted, you not caring, you tuning out the TV and your own high responsibility with the greatest title in the land, that of citizen, to get on the phone and call your congresspeople. So call them, tell them to support John Larson's bills, tell them to support the efforts by those in Congress who are fighting to protect and defend Social Security and save it from being driven into total system collapse by Doge and co-president Musk. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for those remarks, but also for your amazing public service, including today as you seek to educate the public. Everyone loves Social Security and people don't know what's happening. And it's really important that we all get the word out. So thank you for that. And really following right along with that, Representative John Larson is the champion in Congress. He's the most knowledgeable. He is ranking on the Social Security Subcommittee. We all hope and trust he will soon be chairman of the Social Security Subcommittee. We need him as the chairman. He has been a fighter and forward-looking, has proposed enormously important legislation, including new legislation to stop, as Commissioner O'Malley talked about, the co-presidency of Trump and Musk. And it is really, although much of the country may not know your name, Representative Larson, everyone in this country owes you a huge debt of gratitude. And with that, let me turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining today on this.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy, and it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to follow up Martin O'Malley also. What an incredible job he did as both mayor and governor, and of course, most recently, what a tremendous job he did as our commissioner. In my humble opinion, I wish he was the Democratic National Committee chair, because we certainly need him, because he gets and understands what Roosevelt understood. You know, here we have a program that is the signature program of the Democratic Party. And also, as the commissioner was mentioning, probably the signature plan of the United States of America that pulled us through, kept our system of capitalism and entrepreneurialism alive, because it needed a safety net, and it needed something that would protect the ordinary citizen and help them get through difficult times. And as he said, and it's persevered through world wars, and it's persevered through the most difficult times. And even if you go back to just as recent as 2008 and 2009, when people's 401ks became a 101k, Social Security never missed a payment. Not a pension payment, not a disability payment, not a spousal or dependent child payment. That's the genius of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And frankly, a lifetime work of Nancy Altman as well, who I'm sure many of you on this line know, but she was part of the Greenspan Commission as well. And while she credits me with being knowledgeable about Social Security, she's forgotten more than I can ever remember about Social Security and how it works. And Martin referenced her book as well, but she continues to tirelessly advocate on behalf of Social Security because she knows it is the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and the #1 anti-poverty program for children. Until we make the child tax credit permanent, that will still be the case. And it also helps more veterans with disability than even the VA. So it's quite a legacy that it has. And the last time Congress acted as a body to expand its benefits was 1971. That's 54 years ago. Now, some will go, whoa, wait a minute. Didn't they do something back in 1983? Yes, they did, mainly at the urging of the Greenspan Commission, but they did, and with Tip O'Neill, were able to extend the solvency of Social Security, but they didn't extend the benefit system, etc. Having said that, it still needs our focus and attention. And we have introduced legislation in Congress to not just protect Social Security, but to expand it. And the leading proponents behind that are people like Nancy Altman and Social Security Works, the Committee to Preserve and Protect Social Security, the AFL-CIO. You could go down the list of people who understand, as the commissioner noted, just how vitally important this program is to every American and how it augments and helps people who have a pension and have a system. But here's the hard truth. For 40% of the 70 million people on Social Security, this is the only benefit that they have in terms of pension protection. And it's what keeps people off of the poverty rolls and allows them to lead a life of dignity, having paid into a system all of their lives. And so it's long overdue for Congress to react. And I couldn't be more grateful than to Nancy and Social Security Works for having gotten behind and stood behind Social Security 2100. And now, as we seek to reintroduce that bill, which we're putting the final touches on, with leader Hakeem Jeffries taking the point, and Rich Neal, who was at our press conference the other day, as well. So the ranking member and soon to be chair of the Ways and Means Committee again, and the soon to be again Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, is a great leadership at the top of this agenda. But we also need to continue to work in dealing with this administration's efforts to eviscerate Social Security. And I'm taking it personally as my job and responsibility to make sure that we clarify for the people what they're up to here. And I think this is vitally important. Let's start with President Trump saying that he's not going to touch Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. And yet the budgets that are produced both by the Republicans in Congress and by the president do exactly that. And so we will stand and fight and make people aware of this. But here's something that I don't think every American is aware of. And some are even applauding Elon Musk coming in and saying, well, look at, he's taken on this responsibility. President has given him a goal. He said he wants him to find $2 trillion to be cut from the federal government. Now, I want you to keep that figure in your minds, $2 trillion. And the president said, because in the meantime, that he's going to preserve Social Security and Medicare. He's going to make sure that we have a strong defense. Well, 70% of the federal budget comes from three programs: national defense, Medicare and Medicaid, and Social Security. Only one of those programs, however, has a trust fund. And in that trust fund, currently, Social Security has, $2,800,000,000 that has been set aside by hard-working Americans paying into that system throughout their lifetimes, especially the working people of the middle class. Because, as Nancy knows, and as the commissioner knows, not everybody pays into the system. In fact, Elon Musk, if he pays at all, if he hasn't circumvented the FICA rule to get around it, is done paying on January 2nd into a system that you pay into 12 months out of the year. And so what we have said is, listen, Social Security needs to have its benefits enhanced. A lot of things have changed since 1971, don't you think? And we need to do so in a way that we eliminate the taxation on Social Security for people who work, that we give an overall benefit increase, that we help out the more than 5 million people who get below poverty level checks from Social Security, having worked and paid into a system all their lives, to make sure that there's an across the board benefit for people to catch up for the neglect that's taken place over the last 54 years, and a host of other benefits, including ending the long waiting periods to get disability, where people have actually died waiting to get their disability payments, and also make sure that the program is appropriately staffed and run efficiently and effectively. That brings us to what this administration is after. They're starting with one, lying and saying they're not going to touch Social Security and they're not about cutting Social Security benefits. But in the next breath, say how they're going to cut the agencies, cut the field offices, cut the individuals that are working on there. And as you heard Commissioner O'Malley say, especially those individuals that are responsible and in charge of looking at fraud, abuse, and waste, and also the people that are not paying their fair share and not paying into the system at all. So we introduced three pieces of legislation, and they are as follows. Keeping Our Field Offices Open Act, which is Danny Davis and Steve Horsford and myself have introduced. Every member of the Ways and Means Committee has signed on to this bill and every bill that was introduced. That's important because every Democratic member, I should clarify that, has signed on, because that's the committee of cognizance, and that's where all this legislation will pass. And because it's the committee of cognizance, we also said that we want to make sure we're protecting America's Social Security data, making sure that so-called Doge, and I agree with the commissioner, I call them Dodge as well, because they dodge any kind of accountability on the part of Congress, but making sure that they have to come before the United States Congress and testify what they're doing with these records, what they're looking at, what they have in their possession, and why they need this. I think You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out why they're going after this. And as we said earlier, when you look at the Social Security Trust Fund and understand the $2.8 trillion that exists there, that's where the money lies. And are they doing this to altruistically or to look at paying down the national debt? And how can they possibly be strengthening Social Security if they're cutting these very benefits? Well, the short answer, I think, is intuitively obvious. They're not. And what they're doing is intentionally going after this program. And I know there are some that have to be listening saying, no, 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 no. Wait a minute. President Trump said he wasn't going to cut it. And he is passing. He did call for, even in his State of the Union message, again, for eliminating the taxes on Social Security. He did very well. We had it in our proposal all 4 years that he was president of the United States, and he never mentioned it. You know why? Because we paid for it. Under President Trump's proposal, and you have got to understand this, that if it's unpaid for, the money has nowhere to come from but out of the existing Social Security Trust Fund. And what that would mean for our citizens, and especially for those 40% of our people, more than 28 million people, that this is the only thing that they have. 36% cut to benefits that are already in desperate need of being enhanced, not cut. It is an absolute travesty. So what can their possible goal be here? Their goal is to privatize Social Security. Their goal is to say, well, look, Social Security can't sustain itself unless people like Elon Musk and the billionaire class get a hold of that money and invest it in the private sector. We will not let that happen. It cannot happen. And you don't have to go back to 1929 in the great crash. You only have to go back to 2008 and 2009 when people saw their 401k become a 101k and saw their benefits that they thought they were receiving disappear before their eyes. During that same time, Social Security never missed payment. That's why all of this is so important as well. And lastly, we have to make sure that this happens we're calling for a resolution of inquiry with regard to the hostile takeover of Social Security by President Trump. And make no mistake, that's what's going on here. That's what they're attempting to do. It's a different route to get to privatization. That's their goal. But in the process, they're going to tell you that they're in favor of Social Security. They're going to say to you that they're for, in fact, ending the taxation of Social Security benefits, which we are as well, except we pay for it. And how do we pay for it? By making Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the billionaire class pay the same thing that every other working American would do. And by doing that, not only do we salvage and protect Social Security, but we're able to expand its benefits as well. And yes, we're able to provide tax cuts for people who continue to work while they're receiving their Social Security and shouldn't be taxed on their Social Security because that's double taxation. So I can't thank Nancy enough and all of you for participating. But now is the time we really have to lean in and put our shoulder to the wheel. We're going around the country and doing virtual town halls like this and in districts. Democrats are fired up. But let me also say, so are unaffiliates and so are Republicans. When Republicans hear the truth about what is happening, they respond. And that's why, more than anything else, what we need to require of President Trump and of Elon Musk and the Republicans is a vote. That's what we're elected to do in the United States Congress, to actually vote on legislation that impacts the American people. It's been more than 54 years since Congress last enhanced Social Security. Don't you think it's time for a vote instead of standing back and doing nothing and watching the program implode so that the Trumps and Elon Musk can say there's no other solution but to privatize this? Thank you, Nancy, for doing this. Honor to be on here with everybody I know who's fighting so hard to make sure we preserve the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and our children.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those remarks, and thank you for your leadership. It drives me crazy when I read in the papers, oh, nobody's, Congress isn't acting. Congress, when the Democrats, with your leadership, have introduced legislation that restores Social Security to balance, expands the program, and has over 90% of the Democrats who are co-sponsors of that very important legislation.
Nancy, could I add something there too?
Absolutely.
Would you please, everybody on this line, give Hakeem Jeffries a call and thank him. And thank him for standing up and thank him for saying there's no way that we're going to let this happen, because he understands just how vitally important it is, not just to protect Social Security, but to expand it in a way that it hasn't been done in 54 years. And with him and Richie Neal spearheading this effort, along with yours truly and just about every Democrat in Congress, we're going to get this done. And that's our commitment and pledge. We need your help, but we're going to first stop what they're attempting to do, and then we're going to pass what we know has to be done for the American people.
Absolutely. And I really look forward to 2026 when Speaker Hakeem Jeffries brings the Representative Larson's, with his 90% of the Democrats co-sponsoring it, the Social Security 2100 Act up for a vote. That's the way to make real progress on this issue. As Representative Larson says, vote is the right thing to do. The Democrats have their plan. What's the Republican plan? And they don't want to put it out there because even their voters won't like it. So again, thank you for your leadership. And so we've now heard from the executive side and the legislative side, and I think it's really important for everyone. We all know people who've received Social Security, how important the program is, but to really give a face to the program, I'd like to introduce our final speaker, who is a dear friend and colleague, Peter Morley, who receives disability benefits. So Peter.
Well, first of all, thank you to everyone here for the Scrap the Cap Day Town Hall and for everything that you do. I'm so humbled and honored to be here. As someone who subsists on Social Security disability, I am so thankful and grateful for the income because I have paid into it for years, and it was there for me when I needed it. In 2007, when I became permanently disabled from an accident and unable to work, I was fortunate to be spared the entire cost of my medical bills because I had continuous insurance coverage. But since I could no longer work, I had to apply for Social Security disability. And it is a daunting task applying for SSDI. Between the application, waiting period, physical examination, it was months. And that is if you are incredibly privileged, as I was, to be awarded disability. I found out in my chronic illness and disability communities, they had to appeal several times before they were approved. Their waiting times were years. And all that time with little or no income, who can live like that? And I will always be grateful that I was approved because I have had diagnoses that over the last 18 years have catapulted me well above 10 pre-existing conditions, along with 11 surgeries, one I just had last month, and 2 battles with cancer. I learned that your healthcare could change in an instant. In 2013, it's a struggle to get out of bed. I take 38 medications yearly and self-inject myself with biologic treatments. I could not afford to pay for these medications, which would cost me over $150,000. Yes, $150,000 a year, and would lose access to my team of doctors. So without my SSDI and traditional Medicare, I would not be speaking to you today. I would have already perished. And yet there are so many people that have lost their battles just waiting to be approved for the program. In 7.5 years, I've collected the healthcare stories of thousands of people who shared their personal stories and concerns with me. I've held over 900 advocacy meetings with Democratic and Republican members of Congress alike. I have also had the honor to testify in Congress before 3 separate House committees. People on Social Security and SSDI, SSI have told me they feel alone, scared, and afraid when they should be focusing their energy on their own well-being. But they see and hear Elon Musk and Donald Trump actively undermining the Social Security Administration, laying off 7,000 workers, closing offices, and pushing out experienced staff. Experts, like you just heard, Martin O'Malley, have warned us that this could cause a system collapse within 30 to 90 days from now. And for the first time in 18 years, I may not receive my Social Security disability income. Who is going to help me when 50% of the Social Security workforce is gone? Elon Musk spent last weekend gaslighting America with his Social Security being a quote unquote Ponzi scheme lie. It's absolutely outrageous and despicable. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are deliberately undermining confidence in Social Security when the truth is it delivers accurately and timely 99.7% of the time. These are our earned benefits. It is our money that Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and his administration are trying to steal. While most of us think of Social Security as only being there for retirement, it also provides payments to the long-term disabled, people like me who are no longer able to work. I know our country's disability system is effective because I've had to rely on it through numerous major healthcare crises. The world's richest man is filling your head with lies. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are promoting massive tax cuts for the wealthy Silicon Valley elite, paid for with deep budget cuts on the backs of the Americans who depend on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Millions will be affected. Millions will die. When Donald Trump was elected for the first time in 2016, I was initially afraid to speak out. I felt I would be targeted, but I soon realized that if I didn't speak out for me, who would? That is why you must share your own stories with your members of Congress. Because by sharing your healthcare journeys, you are putting a human face to what would otherwise be considered data. Thank you all for fighting for everyone on Social Security, especially for the claimants and recipients, so we can simply exist. Most importantly, fight with us to scrap the cap and make Social Security solvent forever. I will leave you with this last ask. Please join me in making a promise to never stop fighting until we expand benefits for all and overhaul the application system to expedite the process for payment for patients applying for SSDI. People should not have to wait for years to be approved. It's a tragedy and it's a disgrace to our country. And it is my dream I will live to see this day.
Peter, thank you so much for those remarks, for sharing your story and all you do to bring this issue in front of all Americans. I know that we all look forward to the time when we no longer have a scrap the cap day, because the 2100 Act has been signed into law and everyone, including the billionaires, contribute on all their income all year long, and benefits can be raised for all of us. So it is so important and I think this is a call to action. This is not just information. It is so important that everyone who cares about this program, which really, and everyone who's affected by this program, which is really everyone, have their voices heard. Call your members of Congress, call the White House and tell them, hands off Social Security, ensure that everyone pay, the wealthiest pay their fair share, and that they adequately, we've already paid for the services of the Social Security Administration. Let the Social Security Administration pay what it needs to pay to expand field offices, make wait times go down, and have it so we all can receive the benefits we've accessed. So I really appreciate Representative Larson, Commissioner O'Malley, and Peter Morley for, as I say, not just your remarks, but for all you're doing every moment to ensure that, and again, this is an issue that is a wonderful issue because we are all united. MAGA Republicans feel the same way as labor union members. We want to see this program there, strong, and expanded. So we are going to continue to fight. And thank you all. And thank everyone who is watching this for doing your part as well. Bye now.